So the topic given to me is to, talk about Indian women in Olympics, their journeys and their achievements. What I thought would be best I should do is, because I'm not an Olympian myself, I really wanted to be one, but I couldn't because I was brought up in a very conservative environment where I was not allowed to do sports after high school. So becoming a sports psychologist to Olympians was my way into Olympics. And it did take a long time to get into the Olympic arena, but I managed to do so around 2004. So I decided to take this more from a psychological perspective on, what kind of journeys can lead to achievements in women, in Indian women at the Olympics. So talking a little about that, I think it's important for us to reflect, on what has been going on so far. So far India is at 28 medals in a 100-year journey for India at Olympics. Is it an awesome achievement? Let's be honest, it is not, given that we have so much talent, we have so many young people, we have so many resources, but something somewhere was missing along the way. And I think for the last two Olympic cycles, things certainly have improved. And like how, Professor Khanna was talking about, we really need, to step up the high performance support to our athletes, bring about a high performance in the sports ecosystem to be able to do that. And judging by what I've understood about India for the past 2 days, because I've been away from India for more than 20 years now, but for the last 2 years, I've been working closely with the sports ecosystem. Judging by what I saw then and what I see now, certainly it's moving in the right direction. Is it enough? No. More can be done, but at least we're thinking in the right direction. Judging by numbers, representation of India has increased with each Olympic cycle. And certainly, female Indian athlete representation has increased too. So Tokyo 2020 is one of our best representations yet. We have 115 plus athletes. The sprinting relay team, they perhaps will add another 3 or 4. So I don't know the exact numbers, but it does look promising. In terms of, our female Olympian journeys, I would like to say they've been exemplary, because the 50 plus female athletes at the Tokyo Olympics, across 16 sports, where 4 sports are represented by female athletes only. And I think that's huge, keeping in mind the total number of Indians, male and female, who represent us at the Olympics. Now, I work with, other than Singapore, the other nationalities I work with have representations in hundreds. So even there, the percentage of representation of women is not as high as it is in India today. So I feel very proud that really we are at almost a 40% representation at Tokyo. Now, including Tokyo overall, there have been about 256 female athletes who have held India's flag high at the Olympics till now. Right? Now, in a bigger scheme of things, looking at a population tiny, but then, like I mentioned below, before, judging by overall how many numbers have kind of represented India, having 256 female athletes represent India to hold this flag is huge. Other part of, female Olympian journeys is that they've been extraordinary. The Indian or the International Olympic Council encourages gender equality. Although India's overall representation of both men and women can be said as very low in comparison to the massive amounts of talents we can reap, in terms of gender equality at Olympic representation, India is pretty much in line with IOC's guidelines. So like I mentioned earlier, 40% of Indian athlete contingent to Tokyo is female, which is amazing. This didn't just happen overnight. This has been possible because the sports talent blurs gender lines. There's no gender to talent. There's no gender to passion. There's no gender to commitment. There's no gender to dedication, hard work, winning spirit, all of which is required to perform at the peak. So, it can be easily said that peak performance has no gender. So as a woman, being in high performance sports for more than 15 years. I might not be an athlete, but supporting high performance athletes for podium finishes, it's not an easy task. But I never see myself as a woman. I just see myself as a high performance sports scientist who's out there to help raise high performance. Little does it occur to me that because I'm a woman, I can do this less or I can't do that. So as women, we don't have that in our minds. So I want to believe our female athletes in India don't have that either. And therefore, I can, very strongly tell you that peak performance has no gender. So whatever discrimination happens in the mind of people, right? Now, but then, as much as peak performance has no gender, just handing out opportunities to an Indian woman athlete is not going to serve, is not going to make it happen. Because whoever makes the most of the opportunities they're given, whoever makes the most of what they have, whoever makes the most of the kind of support they get, all this while cruising the murky, uncontrollable circumstances, gets to the top. Now, to be honest, females don't have it good in India, despite impressive leadership we've had through the years, through the centuries, and despite the might the Indian women have brought in support of saving India from invasions, uh, despite the fact that women in India, kind of keep things going, bring the governance in India at a balance. But then I want to believe that Indian and women in India also understand that biopsychosocially we're different from men. We both are gifted. We both have a unique set of abilities, that set us apart. And this is what helps us or rather allows us to grow and to thrive. We're not here to compete against the women or rather the men. We're here to grow with them, because as much as I'm talking about a woman athlete, I'm sure a male athlete also has their own challenges. While men are gifted physically mostly across the globe, women are gifted emotionally. And then additionally, owing to their biology, women have very important physiological phases to their lives. Now, these physiological phases are very important. I'm talking about the period cycles we have, the hormonal havoc we go through day by day and through, month over month. And this is something needed for the most beautiful and amazing responsibility of childbirth. Now, when women go through all these experiences, it doesn't make them weak. It actually makes them stronger. So I think what women are asking is not for sympathy. What women ask is for empathy, for an understanding. We don't want anything extra. We don't want anything more. So I certainly want to believe our female athletes in India are not asking for anything extra. They really want that, whatever they can get, whatever the kind of support they can get. And like I told you, this beautiful, amazing responsibility of childbirth and having to go through the, menstrual cycles and dealing with the menstrual havoc actually makes us stronger. It gives us the mental resolve to deal with challenges that come during training and competition. Now, traditionally, India's culture is not kind to women in sport. I don't want to get too much into that. Mostly because traditionally sport has been viewed as something the boys do. I've experienced that too. When I was in high school, when I saw Asian Games on TV, I so wanted to be a part of it. I wanted to be an Olympian, but I was not allowed to. So it's not that I didn't have it in me. It's just that, the family system, the upbringing around how it was brought. Of course, there was a lot of love, but that was a major barrier to my sporting, future, to be an Olympian myself. And I want to believe I had what it takes. Correct? But then investment of money on women for sports is scanty too. Things are much, much better today. What I'm seeing, at least in the elite athletes, the tops athletes, they're the most I'm familiar with. The amount of money spent, there's no difference between gender. They only look at, who's the probable candidate, who's going to bring in home the glory, etc., etc. But overall, things have certainly improved. Now the question is it enough? I don't think it is enough. There's a lot more to be done. You know, Also keeping in mind that quite a many of our elite athletes come from rural backgrounds. You know, Initially their families seem quite motivated to let go of their children with the hope to secure their future, because they don't know much about sport, but they see sport as a way of securing a good job. If their child represents at the state level or the international level, at least it's guaranteed some money or a kind of a stable job. But then, what happens when these young persons attain late adolescence, you know? And then when they're about 15, 16, 17, especially those who come from rural backgrounds, the female athletes, there's a huge expectation from them to bring in the medals and the money or retire from sports because of the concerns with the fertility shelf life. Again, I don't blame that thinking. That is the best they know. All right. So what are we doing there to keep that continuity? What are we doing there to manage the weed outs? Or do we have plans for these athletes post retirements? Retirements due to weed out, retirement due to poor performance, retirement due to an injury, or perhaps retirement due to no interest. So these are extraordinary circumstances which our female athletes, go through. On the other side, on the urban front, there seems to be a big hurry, on medals and the encouragement of an outcome orientation. The medals seem to be a barometer for self-worth. Again, the fertility shelf life concern is somewhat similar too. So a sports ecosystem where women athletes is expected to grow, attain excellence, is a challenge in itself. And this is not just true for India, but true to many sports ecosystems in the world. So largely, most women athletes seem to deal with what's thrown at them on field and off field. However, spending the energy to deal with stuff off field, dealing with the challenges, this does not serve well, as it gets the better, gets them to use the precious mental energy that is needed to excel, to test their limits, to shine, to claim that spot on the podium. And for that, they need to be able to perform to their peak. So it's not just that there's a lot of noise and concerns during performance. Off field is where things get out of hand, especially for women athletes. Now the big question is, can we do something about it? I want to believe a lot can be done about it, and a lot is already being done. Now, despite all these challenges, India has managed to have an amazing at the Tokyo 2020. So I want to believe that some parts of the high performance sports ecosystem has done a good job, perhaps in acknowledging the Olympic spirit, the Olympic values of no discrimination, and actually applying it. So if you recall Professor Khanna's discussion earlier, what he was talking about is we have a lot of knowledge, but application is a challenge. So in being fair to women athletes in India, some parts of it is going great, support or whatever is being done overall for India. When things are so great, when we have like 40% representation of women athletes, imagine if that support, if that encouragement is kind of upped a little bit, how much more things can improve. So moving forward, what do we do? It is said that it takes a village to raise an Olympian. Why? Because journeys predict achievements. So it's the nature of journeys, the effectiveness, the efficiency of journeys that predict achievements. We don't have to do anything extra. But if you can do just enough, I know who defines the just enough. The just enough is defined by the athlete themselves. So if we can talk to these female athletes and ask them, what is that they want? What is the kind of support they're appreciating and making use of, and that's helping them, and what's not? That's super important. And the village that raises the Olympians give those experiences of journeys to the achievers. So, of course, it takes a village, a sporting village, to raise an Olympian, rightly said. And like I told you earlier, I've worked with top 10, podium finishers at Olympics. And these sports ecosystems are not perfect. They're not 100% foolproof. Those athletes have a lot of challenges too. But what they get is much, much more than what we give our female athletes. Not all of these top sporting ecosystems have all the tools, correct? Some have tools and, perhaps in terms of knowledge, but they don't know how to make use of it, how to apply it. And some have tools for the sake of, to have those white elephants, to kind of like, an honest self-reflection in terms of tools that are required to allow the female athletes see the light of their talent, see the light of their passion, a high performance sports ecosystem that allows them to grow, and more importantly, something that allows them to flourish. Unless each of the athletes are able to give their best, we will never know how many medal podium finishes we have. Generally, as a psychologist, I don't like the the vocabulary, the medals, the podium finishes. But you know what? Competitive sport is about those wins. But then, more importantly, it's about putting the best foot forward. So, like I said, it's high time. India, as a high performance sports ecosystem, needs to look at, are we giving our athletes the right tools that allow them, that these tools that facilitate the best performance in them? And perhaps then we can have, the right gauge of where we stand on the podium finishes. Now, like I said, the mental game, the grit, allows for peak performance. To that end, the mental wellness of the athlete is key. This is irrespective of whether you're a female or a male. But since I'm talking about females, let me stick to that. Now, some questions we can ask ourselves as a high performance sports ecosystem is, are we doing enough on the mental wellness aspects that allows our female athletes to unleash their potential when it matters? Do our female athletes feel psychologically safe within our sports ecosystem? Do they feel respected? Do they feel accepted? Do they feel safe for interpersonal risk-taking? Are the importance of self-care and what they need to do towards their own mental wellness? We need to understand that psychologically unsafe athletes incur mental injuries such as low self-worth, low self-esteem, low self-confidence. It doesn't matter how talented they are. It doesn't matter how many years of training, how many hours of training they've done. But when you incur mental injuries that impact your self-worth, your self-esteem, and self-confidence, it's impossible to unleash your best. No amount of motivation, no amount of intention is going to help that athlete. So psychologically unsafe athletes incur mental injuries. They also incur, or rather, the chances of physical injuries is also higher. Because when an athlete is stressed, chances of having physical injuries is higher. Because their heart is racing, their respiratory rate is high, and their muscles are tense. So unsafe athletes incur sleeping disorders. It's not that they don't want to sleep, but they can't fall asleep because the experiences become very traumatic for them. They go through anxiety, they go through depression. They can end up with eating disorders, substance abuse, and ultimately burn out. All without the fault of the athletes. This is not what they planned for, but this is what an unsafe sports ecosystem can do to them. I've been witness to some of it in the Indian sports ecosystem. And I'm on a journey of, talking about athlete mental wellness. I don't know if it's going to remove all of it, but I want to believe that it's going to have, some impact somewhere. Because the younger generation in the sports ecosystem, they listen, they're more sensitive, they're more empathetic. Because the thinking is not traditional. Because the thinking, no pain, no gain, does not hold true for today's day and age. Things have moved on from there. So, do our women athletes have the mental tools for continued participation and excellence at high performance? Or are they a one-gig Olympian? That's something we need to think about. Are we supporting them with their efforts towards mental resilience that facilitates their best performance? Do we have a sports culture that's safe for female sports talent to grow and flourish? Are we doing enough to make the sporting journeys pleasant, fulfilling, safe, effective, efficient? If we can be honest to ourselves, we will see that most of our answers to those tough questions are in the negative. So what do we do next? The answer is simple. We just need to understand the psychology of an athlete. Also noting that the age of elite athletes is becoming younger and younger with every Olympic cycle. For Tokyo 2020, I have about 28 athletes from 9 different nations, including India. 17 of them are 20 and below. So they're in the adolescence periods. And adolescence in itself, whether you're an athlete or not, is a very challenging milestone. So while going through adolescence, to cruise through high performance highs and lows can be very daunting. Let's aim to raise the education and awareness of our sports ecosystem. Let's aim to empower them with skills that aid to keep our women athletes psychologically safe. Let's have them respect our women athletes, accept them, and let's aim to make our women athletes feel safe for interpersonal risk-taking. By ensuring mental wellness of our women athletes, I want to believe that the representation will become higher. And unless the representation at Olympics becomes higher, achievements won't grow. Certainly, it won't happen overnight. Moreover, attitude shifts, change in perspectives take time. And it's wrong to assume that the intention of the existing sports ecosystem was wrong. What I'm understanding, the more I have conversations in India regarding mental wellness and psychological safety, is what I'm understanding is that the intention was not to do the harm that's happening. The fact is most of them did not know better. So it's time to create that awareness. It's time to, educate them. And more importantly, it's time to kind of, help them with tools that empower them to create that psychologically safe environment for the women athletes in India. Now, judging by my international experiences over 4 Olympic cycles, I want to believe that India is ready to take those steps in providing a psychologically safe, high-performance sports ecosystem for our future Olympians, especially our future women Olympians. With that, I end my discussion, and all the very best to Team India at Tokyo 2020. Thank you for listening in.